bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye. Good morning, everyone. Hare Krishna. Good morning, Vaiśeṣika. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto. We're meditating on this pastime of Gajendra, and says some purple haze thing. And I'm going to read a few verses from Prabhupada's purport to resonate, so we can resonate with his mood in relationship to Gajendra. And I'm going to start with text number 27 in the second chapter. That's 8:2:27. As a preface, Gajendra, as we discussed this morning during japa period, was self-confident and empowered materially. An elephant has quite a bit of confidence because wherever he steps, he hears crackling sound. That is something Prabhupada mentions in relationships to Hiranyaka and Hiranyakashipu. He said everybody wants to have a big, huge, powerful body in this world. And Prabhupada mentions elsewhere people he sees running on the beach in the morning so they can be mighty and strong, and that wherever they walk, the earth trembles, as it did with Hiranyaka. And this is the demoniac mood. People deliberately wear these kind of boots that make a sound when they walk. So when you hear them coming down the street, clack, 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 there's a sense of, I'm coming now, so everybody stay out of the way. And Gajendra had that to a certain degree, that he had been given this elephant body, and along with the body, there's a sense of empowerment, because the body is empowered. It's an amazing tool given to us by Krishna through the agency of material nature, through which we have the opportunity to interact with the world in amazing ways. People express that through sports and through academics. They use their minds, they use their bodies. And feeling empowered, they create various works of art, or they show their prowess on a football field, and people admire them. And there's a sense of feeling that empowerment. So Gajendra had that, and as he'd walk through the forest, the other animals would get out of his way. Some animals weren't afraid of him, but they still gave him respect. Others feared him, but everyone respected his power. And Gajendra is described as intoxicated, as described by Kunti Devi when she says, Janmai Shraya Shuta Shibhir, Hidamana Madapuman, Naibar Yavidatu Vai, Twamakinchana Gocharam. There's a way in which this connection we have with whatever endowment we've gotten from material nature can lead to a sense of intoxication. It's a formula that Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, how we get the kind of body, karanam, that we have, karanam guna sangosya sarasad yoni janmasu. There are various interactions we have with material nature, and we get fitted with a specific kind of body. Shotum chakshru sparshanam cha rasanam granam evacha atishtayam manaschayam vishayan upasevate. Material nature of words as a customized body according to how we've associated ourselves and what we desire overall when we leave the last body. So we get a body, and then it has, even if one's in a lowly position, it has some sort of opulence. And Prabhupada mentions a common phrase that even a pauper is proud of his penny. There's a way in which even the lowliest of beings have a sense of themselves, that I'm something special. And this is pervasive in the material world because we're individual souls. We project ourselves into our bodies and we think, I am my body, even though we're not. And then from that, there's this illusory sense of our power in this world and a forgetfulness of our dependence on Krishna. And this creates an illusory sense of ourselves that we're independent. There's also an underlying sense of fear because deep down inside, we know that we can't hold on to our power. So Gajendra had this as he walked through the forest, and he also had a sense of being a maintainer. We read in the third canto recently, we meaning a group of us when we went to Vrindavan and we were reading third canto together, that there's a way in which one thinks, I'm the friend. And Prabhupada emphasized several times in the third canto, we're not the friend of anyone. Krishna's the friend. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Jagnartak kamano nyatra, no, Bhoktaram yagya tapasam, sarvaloka maheshwaram, suridam sarvabhutam, gyapamam shantam richati. Basically, get over the idea that you're helping somebody. I read just recently how one of the richest people in the world, who's the wife of Steve Jobs, he left her a small inheritance. And she does a lot of, good for her, humanitarian, philanthropic work. And there can be a sense that I'm doing good for people. But ultimately, the only good we can do is to introduce people to Krishna. And Krishna says definitively, I'm the friend of everybody. What Prabhupada writes in the third canto, what can we actually do to help people in the ultimate issue? And it is a sentiment that Shukadeva Goswami says, Dehapatra kalatradesha atmasainya sasatsapi tesham pramatanitanam pashanapina pashyati. That we think that we're protected by those who are our friends and our helpers, but ultimately he said, these are fallible soldiers. Only Krishna is infallible in helping us. And of course, Valasyaneha sharanam pitaro nishingha nartasya chaganam udanmati majato no taptasya tat pratividir yarihanjisheshtas tavad vibhotanubutam tvarupekshitanam. This prayer, Prahlad Maharaj says that parents ultimately, although they try their best, can't protect their children. And a doctor, before he or she operates on you, will ask you 7 times to sign a waiver that if I accidentally kill you, then don't mind. And medicine, unless you admit before you take the medicine, Ashaudi chintayam Vishnu. This is the mantra you must say when you take any medicine, that if Vishnu empowers this medicine, it'll work. Otherwise, what can I do? And ultimately, just a side point, I can never really tell what cured me, because whenever I get any kind of ailment, everyone brings me some medicine. Then I have a whole shelf full. And I don't know if it's one of them, a combination or 2 or more, that did it, or if it just, I got over it on my own. It's really hard to tell what works and doesn't work, what to speak of those things that are said to work in this world as medicine. Yasmat priya viyoga samyoga janma shokagnina sakala yonishu tayamana dukaushadam tadapi dukamatad diyaham bhuman brahmami vadame tavadasya yogam. Prahlad Maharaj says, that the things you're taking, it may be worse than the disease itself. Dukkaushadam tadapi dukkhamatad diyaham. He said, you're feeling misery for something, you take something to take it away, and then I think it made it worse. The side effects of that is worse than the disease itself. That's the situation of one in the material world. So ultimately, only Krishna can intervene and solve our problem. This is the conclusion of the Srimad Bhāgavatam, and it keeps bringing us to that conclusion. Although one must take steps, reasonable steps, to protect oneself. It's not that then we then say, kids, go wherever you like in the world, play in the freeway if you like, it doesn't matter because Krishna is your protector. It's that we do our due diligence, but we understand that in the ultimate issue, it's up to Krishna. So Krishna's our friend. And if we forget that, then we become lost in this sense that I'm all-powerful and I'm independent from Krishna. So to some degree, Gajendra had this defect. And as he walked through the forest and approached the very accommodating water of a lake, he thought that this will be a kind of a reprieve from the heat, and he enjoyed his position as the head of the family. He had offspring, and he was in the water, as elephants like water. I had a friend who has a deity of Ganesh, and I saw him, he had a hose. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, he likes water. And so Gajendra was in the water, and he was spraying himself and spraying his family members, and he was thinking that, I like this position. I'm taking care of so many. Without me, what will they do? And then he was attacked. And this is one of the points of this story, is that we'll all be attacked. Either we're being attacked now and we don't know it, or we do know it, or there will be a point at which we come to this realization that I'm really in trouble. And it's at that point when I may dig deep for some special protection, which I realize will not be provided by my money or by the doctors who say we don't know, or we can't really help, or we're not even sure what it is, or it's beyond our control, or we can operate, but it's more likely that we'll kill you if we operate than if we leave it. And then everyone comes to you and says, yeah, but if you just take this vitamin, I know my grandmother took it, and she overcame everything. Even her wrinkles fell off. And it's a confusing situation in the material world. At that point, one may become confused and not know where to grab, for who to grab onto for help. So it's very relatable. It's relatable to everybody that Gajendra was in that situation, attacked by the crocodile, and then because of, as who was it who mentioned this morning? I think it was Pavani Bhakti, because of his previous sadhana. The King Indradyumna, he was Gajendra in his last life, and he had some strict sadhana, including chanting mantras and prayers, and they came out. Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukritino arjuna arto jignasa artarti jnani cha bharatarshaba. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for those who get into trouble in the material world, if they have this spiritual momentum or some credit in their heart, some daivi sampat that they've accumulated by association with devotees and some practice of sadhana, then it comes to them, comes to bear. That's why Prabhupada mentions in this section of Gajendra that it's very important to remember that you're accumulating these kinds of pious credits, or bhakti unmukhi sakriti in our case. It's a kind of sakriti which is very valuable to have stored up in your heart for when this time comes, when you realize I'm helpless. There is also a case to be made that Shukadeva Goswami is presenting this. Of course, Parikshit Maharaj has already fully realized that there's a crocodile on his leg. He got the call. Everyone will get the call sometime. Either it's a text, a call, an email, somebody walks in and says, this is it. And Parikshit had already got that. And so Shukadeva is giving him this context that relates to his, that here's Gajendra, and he fought to get free from, and that's something that we do. We try to survive. And in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhāgavatam, when we hear of Devaki on her wedding day coming home, last thing she expects on her wedding day, I mean, you don't expect this on your wedding day, coming home in the chariot, and her brother and everyone else hears a announcement from the sky out of nowhere that Kamsa, you're such a fool. You're celebrating this day of your sister, and you're even driving her and using all your own resources. Don't you know that her 8th son is going to kill you? And he immediately drops the reins, grabs the hair of his sister, and pulls out his sword, ready to kill her. And then Vasudeva steps in and makes reasonable arguments why he shouldn't do it, and then he makes a plea bargain to save her life. And there, Shukadeva Goswami said, it's the duty of everyone to stay alive as long as possible. And that's because it's such a rare gift, is the human body. Labvam sadurlamamidam bahusam bhavante manushamartadam anityam apihadira, because you can transfer yourself using this body from the temporary to the eternal. You should try to stay alive as much as possible. But there does come a point when you realize this is it. And that is the situation Gajendra was in, the situation that Parikshit Maharaj was in also when he got the call that you've been cursed, you're going to die in 7 days, that's it, it's over. And it could be helpful to hear these pastimes and then relate them to our own situation and preemptively envision that call coming to us. It's a kind of inoculation, isn't it? When we're able to, rather than blithely go through life and expect that maybe it won't happen to me, or maybe I'll die in my sleep and it'll be 1,000,000 years from now, there's a way in which we can preemptively think of the ways in which we may be in Gajendra's situation, and how will I react? And so this is a great benefit of the Srimad Bhāgavatam to give us this insight. Gajendra has given up his false sense of being powerful. He's realized that he can't be saved by those around him, his relatives. Others tried to intervene and get rid of the crocodile, but they couldn't shake him. He couldn't shake him. The crocodile was powerful because he's a creature of the water, and Gajendra is stronger on the land. And here we are at 8.2.26. Like a human being who lacks spiritual knowledge and is too attached to the members of his family, the elephant, being illusioned by the external energy of Krishna, had his wives and children bathe and drink the water. Indeed, he raised water from the lake with his trunk and sprayed it over them. He did not mind the hard labor involved in this endeavor. By the arrangement of providence, O king, a strong crocodile was angry at the elephant and attacked the elephant's leg in the water. The elephant was certainly strong, and he tried his best to get free from this danger sent by providence. Thereafter, seeing Gajendra in that grave condition, his wives felt very, very sorry and began to cry. The other elephants wanted to help Gajendra, but because of the crocodile's great strength, they could not rescue him by grasping him from behind. O king, the elephant and the crocodile fought in this way, pulling one another in and out of the water for 1,000 years. Upon seeing the fight, the demigods were very surprised. And here in the next verse, in the Sanskrit, we have bala, the physical strength, ojasam, the strength of the senses, and mana, the strength of enthusiasm. And the translation is, Thereafter, because of being pulled into the water and fighting for many long years, the elephant became diminished in his mental, physical, and sensual strength. The crocodile, on the contrary, being an animal of the water, increased in enthusiasm, physical strength, and sensual power. Prabhupada's purport. In the fighting between the elephant and the crocodile, the difference was that although the elephant was extremely powerful, he was in a foreign place in the water. During 1,000 years of fighting, he could not get any food, and under the circumstances, his bodily strength diminished. And because his bodily strength diminished, his mind also became weak and his senses less powerful. The crocodile, however, being an animal of the water, had no difficulties. He was getting food and was therefore getting mental strength and sensual encouragement. Thus, while the elephant became reduced in strength, the crocodile became more and more powerful. Now from this, we may take the lesson that in our fight with Maya, we should not be in a position in which our strength, enthusiasm, and senses will be unable to fight vigorously. Our Kṛṣṇa Consciousness movement has actually declared war against the illusory energy in which all the living entities are rotting in a false understanding of civilization. The soldiers in this Kṛṣṇa Consciousness movement must always possess physical strength, enthusiasm, and sensual power. To keep themselves fit, they must therefore place themselves in a normal condition of life. What constitutes a normal condition will not be the same for everyone, and therefore there are divisions of varnashrama: brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Especially in this age, Kali Yuga, it is advised that no one takes sannyas. Ashvamedham gavalambam sannyasam palapatrikam dvarena suto patitam. Devarena suto patim. Kalau pancha vivarjayat. From the Brahma Vaivarta Puranam. From this we can understand that in this age the sannyas ashram is forbidden because people are not strong. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed us an example in taking sannyas at the age of 24 years. But even Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya advised Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be extremely careful because he had taken sannyas at an early age. For preaching, we give young boys sannyas, but actually it is being experienced that they are not at all fit for sannyas. There's no harm, however, if one thinks that he is unfit for sannyas. If he is very much agitated sexually, he should go to the ashram where sex is allowed, namely the grihastha ashrama. That one has been found to be very weak in one place does not mean that he should stop fighting the crocodile of Maya. One should take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. We shall see Gajendra do, as we shall see Gajendra do. And at the same time, one can be a grihastha if he is satisfied with sexual indulgence. Therefore, there is no need to give up the fight. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore recommended stane stita shrutikatam tanuvan manobi. One may stay in whichever ashram is suitable for him. It is not essential that one take sannyas. If one is sexually agitated, he can enter the grihastha ashrama. But one must continue fighting. For one who is not in a transcendental position, to take sannyas artificially is not a very great credit. If sannyas is not suitable, one may enter the grihastha ashram and fight Maya with great strength, but one should not give up the fight and go away. I'm going to read one more purport, and it's hopefully generating some questions. When the king of the elephants saw that he was under the clutches of the crocodile by the will of Providence, and being embodied and circumstantially helpless, could not save himself from danger, he was extremely afraid of being killed. He consequently thought for a long time and finally reached the following decision. Everyone in the material world, is engaged in a struggle for existence. Everyone tries to save himself from danger, but when one is unable to save himself, if he is pious, he then takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Choto vidha bhajante mam jana sukritin arjuna arto jignasu artarti gyanicha barashar shapa. 4 kinds of pious men, namely one who is in danger, one who is in need of money, one who is searching for knowledge, and one who is inquisitive begin to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to be saved or to advance. The king of the elephants, in his condition of danger, decided to seek shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. After considerable thought, he intelligently arrived at this correct decision. Such a decision is not reached by a sinful man. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, it is said that those who are pious, Sukriti, can decide that in a dangerous or awkward condition, one should seek shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and all the previous acharyas, and all the assembled devotees. Vancha kalpa tarubhascha kripa sindhave evacha patitanam bhavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Okay. I warned you that I'd ask for questions. So now I'm asking. Yes, Brajaras Bhavana. And we have Vaikuntha Nayaka from Mysore. Go ahead, Brajaras Bhavana.
In verse 30, it said that Srila Prabhupada said that one should put himself or herself in a strong position to fight against Maya, which means to find type of lifestyle and ashram and so on that is suitable for them to do the best they can to fight against the crocodile of Maya. But how does one distinguish that from, let's say, over-endeavoring for material comfort and so on?
You have to be self-observant and notice how you're feeling and how you're doing it, and see that you feel that you're getting more enthusiasm to do more service. Instead of feeling diminished or in a situation where, although you're feeling out of balance, you don't want to admit that you are, which can be dangerous because it's much more appealing, and it's also realistic to understand the situation one's in now, as Krishna says in the Bhāgavatam, sve sve adhikārya niṣṭhā sādhana parikīrtitaḥ. In this verse, the word guṇa means a good quality. And the good quality, he says, is to be self-observant and understand what your qualification is at the present time and act according to that. And if you do what you can with what you have right now, and you feel that you are getting strength from that, and you're feeling encouraged, and that's a sign that you're in a normal condition and that you're well situated. If you feel, on the other hand, that you're out of balance, it could be that you're not doing enough sadhana. That's another thing, because there are ways in which, when I start to feel dissatisfied with life or with Kṛṣṇa consciousness and start to consider that, well, it's all a show because I'm engaging in such a way that I'm doing it for show, I'm not doing it actually because I have a clear idea that it's in my best interest or that I enjoy doing it. It may be also that our sadhana has gone off into niyamagraha, that I'm not doing it, I'm not really paying attention. So you have to be aware of that also. That's important because oftentimes, or I'd say mostly, my feelings of uneasiness about my life and feeling out of balance have to do with not having enough contact with Krishna. But if we're doing that, our due diligence, and we feel overwhelmed, or there is such a pressing desire on us that we can't concentrate on our sadhana, even though we're sincerely trying to do it, then we may look for adjustments. And that's what Prabhupada's saying in this section is, it's not important what the external condition is. Grihe tako bane tako sada hari boli dako. Whatever situation you're in does not matter externally. It's if you're in the right slot for your psychophysiological nature right now so that you can continue your sadhana, we may forget the last part of the sentence, sada hari bodhidako, so that you can adjust. And sada means always chant Hare Krishna. So that we have to do with some careful consideration, because we go through various phases of our life, and at each phase we have to sincerely observe, what is my intention? And I have to remember that if my intention isn't to increase my service or to go on serving somehow or other, then I may be off track. And we may get help from people around us who can be more objective about how we're doing. That's why I've always advocated for having good mentorship in one's life, for people who can talk to you. You can talk to them and say, this is how I'm feeling. And then once you get some feedback from them, you can become more thoughtful about how to adjust your life. I would give the caveat that it should not include reducing your sadhana, because that naturally leads to a downward spiral, but it might lead to adjusting your lifestyle so that you have what you need, so you don't feel out of place, so much so that you become uncomfortable, and then while you're doing your sadhana, you're thinking, I need something more comfortable, or I feel out of place. Does that help? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did it help?
That was like a nice 8.7.
Okay. A good, healthy 8.7. It's like a 1500 on your SAT. Okay. What else? Yes. Oh yeah, Vaikuntha Nayaka, and then we'll come to Advait.
Dandavats Pranam Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Vaikuntha Nayaka.
Maharaj, I was wondering if you can help us decide when we should put in our self-effort and when we should give up and take shelter of Krishna. Because Gajendra also thought he could combat the situation by his self-effort, and then when he thought it was beyond him, he took shelter of Krishna. So is that the point when we say that, okay, things are not working in my favor even though I put in my effort? Is that the time when we should resort to taking shelter of Krishna? Or is there some other way to know?
Yes, it has to reach a particular status, which is, that status is called providential. And there are certain times in the Bhāgavatam when we see this standard, this threshold reached of providential. Where is it? 27? Thank you. So, no, that's not it. Where's Shastra Sar? What verse number is it in 4th canto I asked for? You know the verse I'm looking for? What? It's right after, okay, maybe it's further forward. I may not have described it to you. Yeah, after that, he talks about providential. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. 4:19:34. This is a verse that takes place that was spoken by Brahma. And in the course of doing his duty, Maharaj Prithu, trying to perform his 100th horse sacrifice, was harassed and interrupted by Indra. Indra very noticeably got envious because he had done 100 horse sacrifices and was known for that. It was in the Guinness Book of Records. It was well known that he held that record. No asterisks by his name, no steroids, everything clean. And he was very proud of it. And then Prithu Maharaj, extremely empowered king, he got up to 99 horse sacrifices which is extremely expensive and difficult to do. It's a miracle that he could get to that point. Then he was about to perform his 100th, and Indra thought, this cannot happen. So he came and dressed up like a sannyasi several times and stole the horse. And those who chased after him, including the son of Prithu Maharaj, were reluctant to assail him because they said, oh, it's a sannyasi, we can't touch him. Indra, in the course of that interaction, became incensed, so much so that he said, I'm going to kill Indra. And then the priests who were performing the yajna said, that wouldn't be auspicious, so we'll kill him for you. And then Brahma, witnessing through his semi-omniscience, this brouhaha, had then descended and told the priest, first of all, you can't kill Indra, he's a devotee, and he's dear to Krishna, and second of all, he said the following to Prithu to bring him back to a sense of proportion. My dear king, do not be agitated and anxious because your sacrifices have not been properly executed due to providential impediments. Kindly take my words with great respect. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. And Prabhupada speaks the following in relationship to this. Sometimes the saintly or very religious person also has to meet with reversals in life. Such incidents should be taken as providential. Although there may be sufficient cause for being unhappy, one should avoid counteracting such reversals, for the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Lord Krishna has also advised us in this connection. We should tolerate things instead of becoming agitated. So there's a case here for the providential nature of an event in our lives, and it may be interpreted according to one's own perspective of what's providential. Even if it's a small reversal and it seems to be an assault on our sensibilities, that why would this happen to me, we can always take shelter of this instruction and preemptively say, well, I'll tolerate it. However, it doesn't mean that we can't take some steps to rectify the situation. And therefore, there can be a formula that sounds something like this: be methodical but dispassionate in the way we deal with reversals. Because if we're methodical, it means we do our due diligence. It's not that we just say, well, it's up to Krishna, and we don't do anything about something where there isn't due process available. But at the same time, we remain dispassionate in understanding that it's up to Krishna. And that's the meaning of the verse, Balasya neha sharanam pitaro nishingha, for Prahlad, that I quoted earlier, in which Prahlad Maharaj is saying nobody can really protect themselves if Krishna is not involved. However, Prabhupada said, we will take time to do our due diligence. You can do your due diligence, but be dispassionate about it, because that's a point at which we become overwrought in the sense that we think that we're going to control the situation. We can say, it's up to Krishna, but I'll do whatever I can to mitigate the situation at the same time. So that means that how do we know when to do it? We should always be detached from everything. That's one of Krishna's messages in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, while you're working in this world, you should offer everything to Krishna and not be attached to it on a personal level. Brahmanyadaya karmani, for example, sangam tyakva karotiya, lipitena sapapena padma patram ivambasa. He says, work in the world, try to solve problems and so forth, but do it as service. And when you do it as a service and you consider that you're offering it all to Krishna, then you won't be implicated, and part of the implication is to get so personally involved in whatever situation it is that you feel assaulted by whomever it is you want to blame. And an example of not blaming anybody comes from the Avanti Brahmana. When he had lost everything in his life, he was contemplative, and he said in one of his utterances that if one bites one's own tongue, who can one blame? If anybody's bitten their tongue before, and then you want to scream out to the universe, you look around, it's like, who can I blame? It was my own teeth who did that. You stop it. And there's that sense in those who are highly enlightened for anything that happens in this world, that who are you going to scream at? And therefore, we have to take each circumstance as an opportunity to take shelter of Krishna, even if we do some due diligence. And that's also a part of the pastime of Parikshit Maharaj, thank you, in which he got this information that he was going to be, where is it? Bookmark, thanks. He is going to be killed by a snake bird that a teenage kid dreamed up. If that doesn't cause a sense of indignance to a Raja Rishi, I don't know what would. A teenager cursed you as they were driving by in their car. They said, that guy should die. And then it's like, yeah, everything's moving in that direction. There's so many ways in which, what, that guy? Or how did that happen? How did this come into place? It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's like they don't do. And there's an overwhelming sense of helplessness that people have often. There are geopolitical situations. There are ways in which, like, these people are idiots. Why do I have to, even Prabhupada mentions it he said in a lecture, he said, why do we have to be ruled by these people? When he was talking about a political situation. They don't know anything. But there you are. You're in it. You're in the middle of it. And Parikshit Maharaj, who was the king, rightfully inherited the throne, was perfect in all ways, made a tiny little mistake, and the next thing you know, a teenager, or prepubescent maybe even, just out of a sense of showing off for his friends and a little bit of emotional anger that was my daddy, and how dare he? I don't care who he says he is. He should die. And by the way, I say that he'll die by the bite of a snake bird who'll fly down and burn him to ashes. And then Parikshit Maharaj got the call that some kid just cursed you. Does that sound providential? And he did his due diligence because he was prepared for it. And it's expressed in the verse where he says at 119:15, O Brahmanas, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way, for I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird or whatever magical thing the Brahman created bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. And Prabhupada writes, as soon as one is given up completely unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he is not at all afraid of death. The atmosphere created by the presence of great devotees of the Lord on the bank of the Ganges and Maharaj Parikshit's complete acceptance of the Lord's lotus feet were sufficient guarantee to the king for going back home, back to Godhead. He thus became absolutely free from all fear of death. Advait, are you still here? He escaped.
Yes.
No, he's here.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we were talking about how we get an illusory sense of power and we forget our dependence on Krishna when we get too proud of the way we were born. And I was wondering how we avoid this with circumstances unrelated to our birth, but rather to our material accomplishments post-birth, because as compared to our state of birth, which we really have no control over, it feels like we did personally put in the material effort for these accomplishments, and so thus we have a right to reap the material fruits of these actions. And I was wondering how we avoid intoxication with these circumstances.
There's a way that Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita that if you claim the fruits of your hard work, then you also have to claim it when it goes down. The stock going up and everyone says you're a genius, and you say, yeah, of course I'm a genius. But when it all crashes down and everyone's all freaked out, it's like, I just lost half my money. Then you also have to take that part too. And one can remember that if by your God-given intelligence you are able to develop an academic status, and then maybe a professional status, and then an economic status, and then all the other statuses that go along with that, which means a decent-looking house, and above-average car, and so forth. You may say, yeah, that's all me, and I claim credit to it, but you also then have to accept the downside too, when it all crashes. And that's one of the points that Narada Muni makes when he talks to Vasudeva in the 7th canto. And he describes how you can overcome that tendency to want to claim the fruits of your results by remembering how it all plays out. Because no matter what you develop here in this world using your God-given intelligence, it will be reclaimed. And you have to be ready for both sides. So just claiming that, look what I've done, look, Ma, no hands. There's an old saying, kids learns to ride a bicycle, and look, Ma, no hands, and he crashes into a tree. And then what are you going to say? Darn tree, just moved in my path. So Narada says to Vasudeva, he said, if you want to become detached from the sense of accomplishment, for instance, of accumulating wealth, then consider the difficulties of maintaining wealth. It's a huge bubble, and it'll pop at some point in every realm of life. And then what are you left with when you said, yeah, I'm pretty smart. I really got it together. And then like, what happened to you, Johnny? You were so smart. You were the class president and the quarterback of the team, and now you're an alcoholic. What happened to you? And that's the story of the material world. Who's up will be down. And anyone who thinks they're impervious to the power of the material nature to drag them down and grind them up just needs to study history a little bit more. There are poetical, there are poems written, for instance, the story, it's like a short ballad of Ozymandias, in which Shelley talks about the ways in which this emperor was so powerful that everyone would shake when he would enter the room because he had so much power and he wanted to smite his enemies, and he did. But now his visage, which was a huge statue, a tribute to him while he was alive, is now lying in the sands, worn away by the blowing of the wind, and the desert stretches out beyond that broken statue. Time moves on and you lose everything. Was that scary?
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was thinking, why does it take for us a crocodile bite, and even after that, 1,000 years to realize our dependence on Krishna? What should we do to have that dependence all the time?
May I have a Bhagavad Gita, please? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives this offer. And Jiva Goswami says that devotees remember this always. It's in his commentary to one of the Bhāgavatam verses. I think it's Bhayam Dvitiya Abhinibeshatasya or another one. And that offer comes at 1866, where Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Ham Tom Sarva Papibhyo Mokshayishami. And in Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada says there are different processes of religion and purificatory processes for cultivation of knowledge, meditation in the mystic yoga system, etc. But one who surrenders unto Krishna does not have to execute so many methods. That simple surrender unto Krishna will save him from unnecessarily wasting time. One can thus make all progress at once and be freed from all sinful reactions. And near the end, Prabhupada mentions the particular words used here, mashuchaha, don't fear, don't hesitate, don't worry, are very significant. One may be perplexed as to how one can give up all kinds of religious forms and simply surrender unto Krishna, but such worry is useless. Because in this verse, and the way Prabhupada comments on this verse in various ways, we have an opportunity every second to preemptively surrender to Krishna, and that's really smart. If you can make yourself smart, and how do you do that? Take prasadam. Don't eat Doritos, or ho-hos, ding-dongs, or Fruit Loops. I can name a bunch of stuff. Don't take it, because it'll contaminate your mind. Don't hang out with people who eat Fruit Loops, eat ho-hos, ding-dongs, and Doritos. And chant Hare Krishna, because chanting Hare Krishna is a way that we directly come in contact with Krishna and all his qualities. And if we can develop this spiritual strength, which means that in our heart we have this prayer going, that although I'm a complete idiot and a fool and I can't do anything right, I want to surrender to Krishna more than anything. That's my whole intention. Krishna, please help me. And in 331, Prabhupada says, he mentions this innocence of heart, where he says, as Krishna first gives this verse, those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. And Prabhupada says, the injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom, and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Kṛṣṇa consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, but have no faith in Krishna. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Prabhupada gives this scenario about a poor man being approached by a wealthy person. And the wealthy man has a big bag of cash and extends it to the poor person and says, take it. And then Prabhupada said, the poor person has two choices. One, take it, and the other, don't take it. And he said, Krishna has extended this offer. Sarvadharma parijaya, surrender unto me, I'll just deliver you. Don't worry about anything else. You don't have to do any of the other processes, just surrender to me. And then we have a choice, take it or don't take it. So spiritual strength means doing whatever we have to do to come to that state of heart where we decide, I'm going to surrender to Krishna. That's the only thing that matters ultimately. Once you've made that decision, nothing can touch you, because all the circumstances of the material world are only attractive to us before we've made that decision. After we make the decision, it doesn't matter what kind of parade goes by. We're like Circus Delay or whatever that's called, or the Shen Yun, whatever they're advertising now on the billboards, or the whatever kind of song and dance comes through town, to a person who's decided that I've pushed the button on my, on your scroll, when you scroll on Facebook, you just say, I've never heard of that before. Well, I just learned the other day, because I was complaining, someone was spamming my feed with all these things, something about BMW, and it was a weird thing, and it just, thousands of them were coming in, so I took it to Satchidananda Nimai and some other high IQ people, and I said, what do I do about this? And they said, see these 3 dots? You click on that, and then there's a button that comes up that says not interested. He said, just click that. So I clicked it, and then it took a day for me to realize the results, because I realized I had to turn off my phone and turn it back on again. But then I commented at that time, I said, maybe there should be a button we push for the whole material world. It's all scrolling before us, and then you just, where's the 3 buttons? It's Sarvadharma Parijja, and you just go in there saying, not interested. I pushed it, and then it's gone. And so when I said that, Satchidananda Nimai said, you have to say that in your next class. So I hope he's listening. And that's a decision. It's a personal decision. If anybody's ever told you that, I made a personal decision, and you go, wow, that's consequential. A personal decision. You made that decision, right? And we have every right to make that. And that's the support we're getting from all these books. You have a right to surrender to Krishna. Don't let anybody tell you differently. And I'll give you all the support in the world by telling you exactly what's going to happen if you don't do it. And I'll give you every example that's every combination and permutations of situations of what happens when you do surrender to Krishna. And when we decide it's a good idea, and not only that, I'm sick and tired, as Devahuti said, of the material world. I don't want to see this feed anymore. I'm changing it, not interested. That's my new status. And then that's our decision. And that's what the real joy in life is, when we are able to come face to face with the crocodile on our leg, or think of it preemptively and understand I've always had one on my leg. Even though I don't admit it, that's what causes the cognitive dissonance, that I feel uncomfortable because I haven't come to that point of saying, okay, not interested anymore. As long as I have an interest somewhere in this material world, there's a sense of angst. Okay, who is next? Who did I say? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for
Krishna.
the enlightening discussion. So, Prabhuji, in one of the purports that we read, Prabhupada was talking about becoming physically, mentally, and sensually strong to fight against Maya. So, can you please elaborate on that? Because many times we emphasize on austerities, where all these 3 things are completely under control. So, what does being strong physically, mentally, and sensually means there?
Means you got to have enough sleep. If you try to cheat sleep, thank you. I didn't pay her to do that, she yawned. If you don't get enough sleep, it's really hard to chant good japa, period. It's really hard to drive a car without crashing into a tree, and so forth. Don't sleep more than you need to. Don't be lazy, but calculate how much your body needs to sleep, and then also eat a diet that will keep your body strong. There's research. It's a robot. It's a car. If you put junk into your tank of your car, you put some Doritos in there, see how your car runs, or pour sugar down the gas tank, it's going to blow up. So you just have to be commonsensical and say, this is a biomechanical robot. I should take the kind of prasadam that will keep my body healthy. And I just shouldn't eat more, and I shouldn't eat less. I should consider what I'm eating to be fuel to run my robot, to make sure that it runs properly. And you also have to go for a walk and look at the trees and appreciate how the leaves look on the ground after it rained. And you have to breathe real air and not live in an artificial situation where you're pushing yourself so hard that you just start to break down mentally and physically. Take the breaks you need. If you're in a relationship, you have friends in the brahmacharya ashram, take time to talk amongst yourselves so you have a clear understanding of what you're all thinking and how you're all in the same goal. If you have a spouse in a married relationship, take some time together to talk about why you're living together and what your goals are. I mean, these are necessary for being strong in life. So you have to consider all these as part of your devotional practice. And there's a way in which you can put so much weight on austerities, which some austerities at some time of your life may strengthen you, and some austerities at another time, the same austerities at another time of your life may weaken you. And you can't just conform to a status quo. You have to adjust according to what you see is necessary for you so you can be steady in your Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Okay, yes.
I actually had the same question as Pavani Bhakti Mataji, and your answer made a lot of sense.
What was the question? Please restate it.
We were talking about how it's bad to have forgetfulness, that we depend on Krishna. And I was just wondering on the day-to-day how we feel that dependence.
And what do you feel was my answer?
We have to read more and absorb Shastra in a way and come to the mindset ourselves that we have this dependent on Krishna and we have this choice. And to make that choice, we have to be less dependent on, or we have to realize the material world is a place of discomfort.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't even remember what I said. Okay, who is next? You're next. Amodavardhana flew down here on his private jet.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So in 730, it says, those in full consciousness of me who know me, the Supreme Lord, to the governing principle of the material manifestation of demigods of all methods of sacrifice, can understand, know me at the time of death. So today's talk was about essentially creating a situation where we feel inspired, encouraged, and motivated to increase our sadhana and our service attitude. But how do we know that our sadhana and service attitude and the things that we are actually finding to be inspiring and motivating intersect with this end goal? Because sometimes it may feel like, at least for me, that the things I'm finding to be motivating or satisfying are maybe a bit of a sidetrack. And like, while they are good, is it actually helping me?
Such an important question. There's a way in which we have to triangulate and navigate through the various phases of our life, and it most helpfully done by, as Niharika just noted, staying close to Shastra, because there's a way in which we realign when we hear the instructions of especially Bhagavad Gita, the Vedic intelligence, but also if you can align yourself with those who you sense have the same mood and mission in life, and check in with them. Human beings are very dependent on one another, and we need help from those who are on the same wavelength. And if you can find those that you respect, who are peers, and also those who are seniors in practice, senior by practice and years, who you sense, I'm in harmony with their idea of how to follow the process. You get so much nuance when you check in. I just recently, and it's not just recently, it's pretty much constantly, I'm in situations in which I have to refine the way I'm thinking about it so I can answer a person truthfully, straightforwardly, without inordinate emotion, but very clearly follow what is correct. But I have to give it to them in such a way that they'll be able to appreciate it and take advantage of it. And for that, I often depend on mentors. You've heard me say it so many times. And I do have specific mentors for specific issues. And I'll contact them. I put out my messages. If they're not home, I tell them exactly what's on my mind, what I need to know from them. And the greatest blessing in my life is that they answer me. And sometimes I've already come to the conclusion just by asking them and thinking about what they would do in the situation, but then I also get their return. This morning I got a couple of voice messages from somebody that I asked 5-6 days ago, but he was busy, but he answered me now after the fact, and I said, okay, confirmed, I did the right thing. So stay in touch. It's not such an easy task, and it's not black and white. It's often the situation that Arjuna was in when they captured Ashwatthama, and Bhima said, kill him. Draupadi said, I said kill him before, but I changed my mind. And then Krishna said, Arjuna, what are you going to do? And he said, you got to do something. And Arjuna came to the conclusion, oh yes, through the presence of Krishna and his strict adherence to thinking of Krishna and being his devotee, he came to the right conclusion. I'll cut the jewel, which Prabhupada said was a very wise compromise, because it killed his social stature. There's no way in the Vedas it says you should kill a Brahmin, even if he's a Brahma Bandhu. So all of that was done through consultation, albeit subtly. Okay? And there was one more.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I think, so we talk about, I was contemplating on one verse, Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says to Arjuna that Ma manusmara yuddhacha. So in daily life, we have a battle, we go to work, we have to battle. At the same time, to remember him, we have to come back. So it's kind of, throughout the day, we have to switch ourselves. So how we can effectively toggle ourselves such that we can detach or do work more dispassionately?
Prabhupada answers that in his purport to that verse, which is Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu manusmara yujja mayarpita mana budhir mami vaishyasya samshaya, right? So first remember me, then fight. And so in the purport, Prabhupada says, this is a very important verse for all people who have to work in the world. And he says, what you should do is chant Hare Krishna. And there's a way in which if you chant Hare Krishna, then you'll remember Krishna. And there's an uncanny way, because Krishna and his name are non-different, that if you take shelter of Krishna's name through chanting the Mahamantra, then you'll be properly guided. And that means you should chant good rounds, actually great rounds. Try for that. As much as possible, keep coming back to that. Don't by degrees let it slip and say, well, I'll do it later. But try to do as best you can every day. And then there's no harm in continuing chanting, even while you're in other situations. You can chant in your mind. You can remember Krishna by chanting the Mahamantra under your breath. Or if you get a break, you can go and chant a little bit more. I noticed, remember yesterday when we all went to San Francisco? You remember? I'm remembering it too. And it's an overwhelming environment, isn't it? It's designed to bewilder the soul. And anytime I go out to present Kṛṣṇa Consciousness to others, and I feel that overbearing energy, either from my own mind saying, what are you doing out here? People are going to reject you, or whatever it may be. If I just repeat the Mahamantra in between when I'm talking to people, then I suddenly feel I'm on the transcendental platform. And my mind gets free. And oftentimes when I'm sitting in my own room at home and I start feeling overwhelmed, there's so many things to do, I couldn't possibly do them all. My go-to process is chant Hare Krishna. As soon as I start chanting Hare Krishna, and that doesn't necessarily include my rounds, it means that any time my bead bag, I keep it sitting there. And then, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. What am I going to do? Pick up my bead bag and chant Hare Krishna. And it's a miracle. Every single time I do that, I feel not only relief, but I start getting good ideas. And it's as if Krishna is speaking to me and saying, here's the solution. And how did it come? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When I was just in Vrindavan, the last class bhāgavatam I attended at Krishna Balaram Mandir, Urmila Devi was talking about anger. And then at the very end of the class, she took questions and comments, and Shrutikirti Prabhu was there, and he said one time in Los Angeles, Prabhupada had gotten some news from Bombay that disturbed him. So he picked up his bead bag and he was chanting like this, and loudly. And then he came over to Shrutikirti and he said, when you get angry, this is how you chant. So that the answer is given by Prabhupada in that purport. He said, learn how to take shelter of the holy name and not just, I finished my rounds, now I'm going to toggle over and deal with the material world. You can do that, but also remember Krishna by chanting in between and see if the presence of Krishna's holy name doesn't solve the situation by taking shelter at that point. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming out for Sankirtan yesterday, or even if you weren't able to come out, thank you for being here today and also for giving your life to the process of Kṛṣṇa Consciousness. I was so enlivened yesterday because I feel sorry for the people of San Francisco. The city seems to be on an ebb. Macy's is going out. How can that happen? Nordstrom's already gone, I think. It's finished, right? You don't even know what Nordstrom is? Oh, it's diminishing down there. And I mean, I do have a twinge in my heart because the store we had Harinam in front of yesterday were the people who vociferously protested against our presence there 2 years ago. And now suddenly they're out of business. So there was just a twinge of don't mess with the Harinam party or you may go bankrupt. We wouldn't say that out loud except just on the side in a class. But there was also an overwhelming sense of how people were bereft of any real happiness in life because they had only that dry experience of walking around and trying to find something amidst the ruins of a once upbeat downtown and just trying to find some pieces of cloth they could buy or some sandwich somewhere. And because all of you were there, bright faces, and the Harinam Sankirtan enlivened so many people as they came by, and then 2,000 books distributed just in a course of a few hours. And who would have thought that people would be attracted to free prasadam? But they lined up and they ate everything. All the prasadam, you could see people sitting, eating prasadam in every direction. And it just felt like, okay, if you want to feel better about the world and yourself, do Harinam, distribute prasadam, distribute books, and just try to help people from that level. And we saw so many people respond in positive ways. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please inspire us and empower us so that we can continue to expand the welfare work of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by doing more and better Harinam everywhere, as it was yesterday. Side point, thank you for the team. And distributing massive prasadam, books, and the holy names to people all over the world, and also having a welcoming environment for each person to come back to so they feel like they have a real friend and they can take up the practice of Kṛṣṇa Consciousness. And also, please let us beat Mayapur. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Om.